Have you ever held something so tightly in your heart that it began to change who you are? Maybe it was anger, betrayal, a wound that never healed. You carried it with you, not because you wanted to suffer, but because letting go felt like losing something, justice, dignity, maybe even yourself. But let me tell you something I learned not from books or scriptures, but from watching countless souls walk into the temple gates burdened by pain and leave lighter, freer. Anger is a silent thief. It does not scream or shout, it whispers. And in that whisper, it tells you, hold on, don't forget, don't forgive. Yet every time you listen, you become the one who suffers. Today, let me tell you the truth you've known all along, but perhaps never fully heard. To hold on to anger is to chain your own heart, and to let it go is not weakness. It is the beginning of true strength. I want to take you on a journey, not just into teachings from the Buddha or Zen wisdom, but through real stories, leaves pain, and genuine release. If you stay with me, not only will you understand how to let go of the anger in your heart, but you may also begin to feel the burden lift, even just a little. Let's begin. The blacksmith's rage. In a small village nestled among the mountains of Japan, there lived a man named Tetsuya. He was a blacksmith, known for his strength, but even more for the sharpness of his tongue and the fire in his eyes. Years ago, his wife had been taken from him in a tragic accident caused by the negligence of a wealthy merchant's son. That man was never punished, and from that day on, Tetsuya vowed never to forget. Every swing of the hammer in his forge carried the rhythm of rage. Every ember that sparked was like a memory rekindled. He was respected for his craft, but feared for his temper. I met Tetsuya not as a monk, but as a fellow human being. He came to the monastery not for prayer, but because his body had begun to fail him. Sleepless nights, a trembling hand. He said, "The fire in me no longer burns others. It is burning me." When we sat in meditation together, he could not sit still. He said the silence screamed too loudly. I asked him, "What do you hear?" He said, "I hear everything I never said to him, everything I wanted to do to him, everything I felt I deserved but never got." I told him something then, not from doctrine, but from the garden behind the temple. "Do you see that bamboo?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "It bends in the wind." "Exactly, it bends, but it does not break. Why? Because it does not resist. It flows. It allows the wind to pass. It does not keep it." "But I am not bamboo," he replied, and I smiled. "Neither am I, but every morning I bow to it, not because it is better than me, but because it remembers something I forget. That to let go is not to give up, it is to continue without being broken." He did not understand then. Most don't at first. Letting go of anger is not an intellectual decision. It is not a switch to flip. It is a practice, a daily returning to breath, to body, to the truth of now. It begins by seeing that anger is not something done to you. It is something you continue to do to yourself. And Tetsuya, after many months, he did not speak of the merchant's son as often. Instead, he began teaching the younger monks how to forge iron into temple bells. When he shaped the bell, he said, "Every strike is like my anger, transformed into something that rings with clarity instead of fire." And on the day he left, he bowed to the bamboo. The weight of grief. There is a woman I met while teaching a retreat in the south of France. Her name was Eliane. Her daughter had been murdered, And for 10 years she lived only for courtrooms and vengeance. She told me, I was not living. I was surviving with rage as my breath. But one morning, after a long walking meditation, she collapsed in tears. She whispered, I can't carry her and carry this hatred too. We sat by the lake for hours. That day, she didn't forgive the killer, but she did forgive herself for surviving. Sometimes that's the beginning. A story from Cambodia. During a teaching visit to a monastery in Cambodia, I met a young novice monk named Dara. He had been orphaned during a time of civil conflict and had seen unspeakable violence before the age of 10. His eyes carried sorrow older than his years. One afternoon, after chanting, he told me, I want to forgive them, but I can't forget what I saw. He spoke of the night his village was attacked and of how he lost his younger sister. For years he clung to a single photograph of her, worn and creased, the corners smoothed from constant touching. That photograph, he said, held both his love and his rage. I asked him, if she were here, what would she ask you to do? He wept. He said, she would want me to live, not to hate. And so we burned incense together, and he placed the photograph at the base of a Bodhi tree. He did not let go of his sister, but for the first time, he let go of the rage that kept him frozen in time. He now leads mindfulness retreats for children of trauma, teaching them that peace is not forgetting, it is transforming. Understanding the root. When the Buddha spoke of anger, he did not say it is evil. He said it is a form of delusion, a cloud over the mind. We are not wrong for feeling it, but we suffer when we believe it is permanent. What happens if we sit with our anger, breathe with it, treat it like a frightened child instead of a weapon? Slowly, something miraculous happens. We begin to see its roots: fear, grief, the need to be seen, the pain of powerlessness. We begin to hold ourselves, not the anger, and in that moment, the fire cools. Letting go of the stone. The angry warrior in the story learned that he was suffering not because he was betrayed, but because he refused to let go of the stone. We all carry stones. Some are betrayals. Some are words we can't forget. Some are apologies we never received. But ask yourself this: if carrying this stone makes your hand bleed, your back ache, your sleep restless, why keep holding it? The one who wronged you may never apologize, but your healing does not depend on them. Your healing begins the moment you stop waiting and start releasing. You may think, but I've carried it for so long, and I say, that's why it's time. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering without pain. Letting go is not weakness. It is the highest form of strength. Letting go is not giving in. It is rising above. And anger? It is not your enemy. It is your teacher, one that stays until you have learned. Closing reflection. And so, as the bell rings through the temple, grounds at dawn, may you remember, peace is not found by quieting the world, but by quieting the storm inside. May each breath remind you, this moment is new. You are not what you carry. You are what you choose to release. Let go and be free.